Anybody who knows me knows that I only have two personality traits. The first is that I love garlic, and the second is that I hate peeling it. Those are my only two personality traits. So what do I do about this, especially given how I love garlic and put it in pretty much everything? Well, I have a system that I'm going to show you today. So much better than the overpriced and low quality minced garlic that you can get at stores, and it keeps better too. It's a bit of a time commitment up front, but it's pretty worth it, I think. Here's what you'll need. Garlic, obviously. I usually get 2 bags from Costco. They're typically around $6 per bag, so that's a really good deal for a year's worth of garlic. I think garlic that's grown domestically tends to be better quality, but get what you can. A knife, a large bowl. You could technically use several small bowls, but having a big one is just less complicated. Several small freezable containers. I've been using these ones for over half a decade now, so even though they're plastic and meant to be more or less disposable, they can actually last quite a while. The thing to keep in mind though is that once they store garlic, you can't really put anything else in them because the smell is not going to leave the container. But that's not really a problem for me because I only use these for storing garlic. And lastly, a food processor. If you don't have access to a food processor, you can use a handheld grater. I used to use one when I was in college that I got from the dollar store, and it took forever, but it worked. You could also use a knife, technically, but that's also going to take a long time. Step 1, the initial peel. This method involves peeling in 2 stages. The first one is like a rough draft. You basically just want to split the garlic bulb into cloves. I find it easier to do this with your thumbs. I press on the cloves and use the pressure to split them apart. Each clove has skin to peel, but you're not going to be concerned with that for now. You just want to make the garlic into discernible cloves. After you split all the bulbs, there's going to be a lot of loose skin in the mix, so you just want to get in there with your hands and get it out of the bowl. This is something I've discovered is actually really useful. I didn't do this for the first 5 years or so of living alone, but in the past few years I started doing this and it's a total game changer because it minimizes the amount of wet, loose skin that you have to deal with later in the process. When you finish, you should be left with mostly just garlic cloves. Don't worry about the skin that's stuck to them because we're going to deal with that later. The skin you did get rid of should look like this when put in a pile. I recommend going through the pile to make sure that you get all the rogue garlic cloves that made it in there. If you do, you can put them back in the bowl unless they're rotten. It's good to clean up as you go along. You should compost the skins if you can. Unfortunately, we don't have compost pickup in my area, so I have to throw it away. The end of step 1 should look like this. Nice, clean cloves in a bowl that's relatively free of skins. Step 2, submerge in water. This next step is super easy. You just want to submerge the garlic in water. Take it to the sink and fill up the bowl. After the bowl is full, you want to turn off the tap and push the garlic on the top underwater so it gets submerged too. They're going to want to float, but you have to push them down. When you finish, just take it out of the sink and onto the counter. Then you leave it alone for an hour or 2. The longer the better because the water is going to soften the skin and make it easier to peel. Step 3, the second peel. This is the stage where we finally get to get rid of the skin on the cloves. Bring the bowl to somewhere you can sit down, like a kitchen table, and get some plates, and a bag, and a knife. I think a paring knife works best. Then use the knife to cut through the end of the garlic clove and peel the skin off. Then put the peeled garlic clove on a plate and discard the peel in the bag. And honestly, this is going to take a while, so you probably want to sit down and listen to some music or podcasts or watch TV or do something else because this is not the most exciting activity on its own. I personally like to listen to 80s hits because they're so dramatic and fun to sing along to, so you could do that for hours without getting too bored. At least for me. There will still be loose skins that you didn't get rid of in the initial peel, and periodically you might want to just fish for them and get rid of them. At the end, the bowl is going to look like this, and you're going to feel super accomplished. Then you clean up the mess. I told you earlier to put the peels in the bag first, but it's actually easier if you put it on a plate and then put everything in the bag after you finish. At the end, you'll have a plate full of peeled garlic. And because you've spent so much time doing this, you're likely to feel delirious and that there's no bigger achievement than what you've just accomplished. At least that's what happens at this stage for me. Step 4. Puree. Now it's time to get the garlic in the optimal state for both freezing and cooking. While there are some recipes that are better with whole cloves, I mostly just use minced garlic because the flavor is stronger and I can never get enough. This part's pretty straightforward. You just dump the garlic cloves into the processor and then you puree it. It won't actually turn into a puree because there's not enough moisture. It'll be a fine mince, which is great for cooking, so it's super easy to add to anything. Step 5. Contain. Then another straightforward step. You just get the containers and fill them with the minced garlic. I like to use these cheap plastic ones because they freeze quite well. They stack for easy storage and they're not as heavy or fragile as glass jars. Just press it in there and get as much as you can. But make sure you leave just a little bit of breathing room. And you just repeat until either all the containers are filled or you run out of garlic. Step 6. Freeze. All you need to do is get a Ziploc bag and fill it with the containers. Putting it in a Ziploc bag makes everything more airtight and it's easier to store inside the freezer. You can also reuse these bags by just washing them. I think I've been using this one for a few years now and it still works fine. Okay, so that's basically my garlic storage method. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon.